Next, I'm going to cover legalities and safety arrangements. This is very important, and you need to be aware of the legal ramifications in each of the countries that you may visit. The first one is laws differ from nation to nation, and so everything isn't going to be the same when you go to a different nation. They have different laws, different customs, so you need to be aware of what these laws and customs are. You need to know the regulations pertaining to the country that you're going to, especially if you're doing a medical type trip. You're going to have to get permits in the areas that you may be holding clinics, things like that. So you definitely have to do your homework and have all this prepared before you go. It's very important that you follow the laws of the country, just as it's important to follow the laws here in the United States, but you have to do the same in another country. And you have to be polite and show respect, because sometimes Americans don't have the best reputation. So we're representing Christ, and so we want to come across as very Christ-like and submit to the authorities there. Next is regarding passports and visas. In order to get into any country now, you have to have a passport, and some countries require a passport and a visa. So if you don't have a passport, you have to apply for it in time before you go on the trip. And it usually takes 3 to 6 weeks. It's taking even longer now because of the COVID pandemic. So you always need to submit your application in a timely manner. And you can also get an expedited passport, but that's going to cost extra. So you need to be aware that if you want to get expedited, it's going to cost more money to get that passport. And then the same with visas. You have to fill out a visa application, and that also requires a fee. So it really depends on the country. Some countries you can get the visa when you enter the country there at the airport. Others you have to go through the embassy ahead of time. So you need to be familiar with what that country requires. You can go online. All of the countries have their embassy sites where you can review this information and see what you need to do or how to apply in order to get the visa that's required. Next is travel warnings. And you really need to be cognizant of the travel warnings that are issued for each of the countries that you may be going to. And a lot of people think this has to do with politics, and that is not the case. These travel warnings strictly have to do with security and safety. If you're going to an area where there's a lot of civil unrest, it's going to be on that website by the U.S. government indicating which countries they're suggesting that you not visit at all. Next is insurance. I touched on this briefly earlier, but it's very important that you have some type of medical insurance when you go on these trips, and you can get it online from a lot of different agencies that supply insurance for short-term mission or just any type of short-term travel, because Medicare will not cover any type of medical emergencies overseas, and you're going to have to check with your own personal insurance that you carry as far as health insurance. Some insurance companies will cover medical emergencies overseas and others do not. So you need to be familiar with your insurance company. But really the best avenue is just purchasing that insurance for the time that you're going to be gone. It's not very expensive, and it covers a lot of things that could happen if something should come up. Next is preparation for what to take. And this has to do with your luggage. Internationally, right now, you can take 2 suitcases. Each one cannot be more than 50 pounds each. If you do end up taking extra baggage, you have to pay for it, and it is expensive. It can be anywhere from $100 to $150 for each piece of extra baggage. And it's going to vary also between countries. Some countries have more strict guidelines as far as how much your carry-ons can weigh, how big they can be. So you're going to have to be aware of that also. So you have to do your homework and see what are the regulations for luggage in the different countries. And it can change between international and domestic. So please be aware of that. The other thing is you cannot send things in boxes. I mean, you can if you want to, but the airlines will not insure anything that's put in a box. So it has to be a regular type of suitcase. As far as baggage guidelines, you need to have baggage or luggage that is durable. We all know how rough luggage is treated, on airlines, buses, trains. Basically, they're just thrown in, and so you need to have durable suitcases. Another thing, and what you might consider is color, like choosing a bright color. A lot of suitcases are black, and they're very generic, so those suitcases can look very similar or look a lot alike. So you might choose a bright colored suitcase. Another way that you can identify your luggage easily is to have some type of colored ribbon or tag or tape on your suitcase that easily identifies that this is your suitcase. Naturally, you also need to have two sources of identification. One is on the outside. You have your luggage tag with your identification on it. Not too much identification. I wouldn't put things like phone numbers and email addresses. But inside of your luggage, you need to put that type of information, your name, your address, your phone number. So in case that the outside tag gets torn off or lost, at least there'll be identification inside your luggage. So in case the luggage does get lost, it can be returned to you because your identification is in there, unless the luggage actually gets stolen. So it's best to, I would recommend that you get the suitcases that have the four wheels on the suitcase. They're easy to roll, and like I said, you can't go over 50 pounds, but 50 pounds is a lot. So if you had to carry that, it can be strenuous. So I recommend getting the suitcases that have four wheels. I know some suitcases have two, which you can still use, but it's a lot easier with the four-wheel suitcases. Make sure the zippers work properly. Lots of times, zippers can get stuck, and that can cause a problem. So make sure the zippers work properly. And like I said, just make sure that you're aware of your health status. And if you can't carry heavy luggage for a very long distance, you need to remember how to pack properly. One thing that you need to realize is that your luggage and your carry-ons are going to be checked and rechecked, depending on how many airports you're going to have to go through to get to your destination. So there's always going to be that checking and rechecking. It's important, as far as like here in the United States, that you cooperate with the TSA, and then in the other countries that you go to with their security personnel. You need to be respectful, and naturally, lots of times there's going to be delays, or you're in a hurry to get to your destination, and there's delays, and it can cause you to be frustrated. Well, don't take it out on the TSA person or the security person in the other country. There again, like I said, we need to come across with Christ-like attitudes. Next is emergency contact information. This is a very important aspect too that you have to be aware of. You need to leave a copy of your passport, and if you have a visa, a copy of your visa with your spouse or your family member, loved one, friend, whatever it is, so that they have that, and also a copy of your itinerary and a number that they can reach you at if you don't have a cell phone with you, in case there's an emergency back home and they need to get in contact with you. So, copy of passport, visa, your itinerary, your emergency contact number, the name of your team leader, all that information needs to be left with your significant others. It's a courtesy to your family, because if something should happen, they need to be able to get a hold of you, and there has to be some type of plan on how you can get back also. Final part is budget and financial preparation. Most individuals are not wealthy, so as far as our short-term mission outreach, a lot of the team members have to raise their support, raise their finances in order to go on the mission outreach. And there's different ways that you can do this. You can send out support letters. You can do things like bake sales, garage sales, lawn mowing, different types of activities to raise money. I know a lot of teams and churches will do like a spaghetti dinner there at the church, and people will come and give money towards their meal, or it could be a set price, but all the money is going to be going to help support the team that's going to be going on the mission outreach. So things like that. There's different ways to raise money, and the most common is the support letter. And that's one thing I want to touch on. There should be a specific format that you use for your support letter. It should never be more than one page. If it's more than one page, people are going to lose interest, and they're not going to pay as much attention to it as you feel that they should. So always limit it to a one-page support letter. And these are the things that you have to include in the support letter: personal greeting, personal introduction of yourself, purpose of the mission outreach. People want to know what the purpose of the outreach is. Details of the outreach, so you need to be telling what you're going to be doing, the time factors, places that you're going to be going. Then the request for your donation and how much support that you need, and you also need to include deadline dates, so the person who's donating knows what the specific time parameters are as far as getting the support to the individual. One thing I like to point out too is on the personal checks that people write, it should be made out to the organization that's sponsoring the trip. And usually down on the memo, you could put something like outreach or a missions trip, but do not put the name of the person that you're supporting down there. For tax purposes, it has to be just the organization, not the individual. So please be cognizant of that. Like I mentioned earlier, we have downloadable links on the website, so there's a lot of different forms that you'll be able to look at regarding everything that I'm covering. One is called Budget Guide for Short-Term Missions, and it's a 3-page document, and you can use this to budget for the mission trip. This tells you everything that you need to know on how to determine what the total cost of the trip's going to be. Like I said, you always need to prepare for the unexpected, so you need to have some type of a finance built in there to cover for any type of unexpected expenses. But these are the things that you need to include in the budget guide. Travel by air and land, lodging, food, which includes soft drinks, medical supplies like vaccines, team medications, medical supplies, pharmaceuticals. If you're doing a construction type outreach, you'll have construction supplies, ministry supplies, ministry offerings and gifts, documents, general expenses, miscellaneous taxes, and rest and relaxation. And that's one thing I really want to stress. Always budget for rest and relaxation for the team. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but maybe like 1 or 2 days at a place where people can unwind and relax, because the team has worked very hard during the time that they've been in this country. Lots of times it can be under unfavorable conditions as far as climate or or the facilities, resources that they have. So people have worked hard, and this provides an opportunity for people to unwind and to relax, and when they get back to the States, they won't be just totally exhausted. So always budget for rest and relaxation. Like I said, it doesn't have to be anything expensive or extravagant. It could be staying a day at the beach or go sightseeing or things like that.